He was born to rule, trained to fight, educated in law, religion, and war. He was the future of a dynasty, beloved by the people, feared by his enemies, and, most importantly, trusted by his father. But in the shadows of that same throne, an invisible war raged, a silent battle not fought with swords, but with whispers, paranoia, and poison. This is the true story of a king so obsessed with power that he killed his own blood to protect it. Not in battle, not in exile, but under his very roof. With a quiet chalice and a shaking hand, Prince died, the kingdom wept, and history tried to forget. But we haven't. Our tale begins in the heart of the Ottoman Empire at its height, when its borders stretched across 3 continents, and its ruler was considered the shadow of God on earth. The man on the throne was Sultan Suleiman I, known to the West as Suleiman the Magnificent. To many, he was the greatest sultan the empire ever knew. A builder of laws, a patron of the arts, a brilliant military strategist. But behind his regal image lay a dark and personal war that would consume his legacy. At the center of this war was his son, Sultan Mustafa. Mustafa was everything a crown prince should be. Handsome, charismatic, brave, loved by the army, adored by the public, and, according to many, far more suited for rule than even Suleiman himself. Wherever he went, soldiers bowed with pride, and crowds shouted his name with hope. He wasn't just the future, he was a threat, but not because of rebellion, not because of ambition, because of a woman. Her name was Hürrem Sultan. Born as a Christian slave, she rose to become Suleiman's favorite concubine, and eventually, his legal wife, an unheard-of scandal in Ottoman tradition. With beauty sharper than steel and a mind even deadlier, Hürrem was not just his lover. She was his queen in all but name, and she had children of her own. Mustafa, you see, was born of another woman, Mahidevran, once favored, now forgotten. And in a palace where every son was a future sultan, only one could survive. Ottoman law made it clear. When a new sultan took the throne, his brothers were to be executed to prevent civil war. So for Hürrem, Mustafa's rise would mean death for her own sons. And for Suleiman, it meant a choice between love for his firstborn and the whispers of betrayal. At first, those whispers were faint. Letters, anonymous accusations, the occasional rumor of disloyalty. But they grew louder with time, always conveniently timed, always vague. Mustafa was gaining too much support in the military. He was acting too independent. He was preparing to take power, or so they said. And the more Suleiman heard, the more he began to question. Had his son grown too powerful? Was the army truly more loyal to the prince than to the sultan? Would there be a coup? Or was it all a game? A trap? A carefully orchestrated illusion spun by the woman who shared his bed? We may never know exactly when Suleiman made his decision, but we know how it ended. In 1553, during a military campaign in Persia, Suleiman summoned Mustafa to his tent. The prince came without hesitation, dressed in white, the color of mourning, as if he already knew. Eyewitnesses say that as he entered, the guards hesitated. They didn't want to kill him. They admired him. They loved him. But orders were orders, and defying the sultan meant death. They strangled Mustafa with a bowstring. No blood, no blade, just silence. When news spread through the camp, soldiers cried openly. Some refused to fight. Others tore down their banners. The morale of the army collapsed overnight. And back in the empire, the people mourned not just a prince, but a symbol of hope. But the story doesn't end there. After Mustafa's death, Hürrem's own sons began to rise. One by one, Suleiman's heirs fell to palace intrigue, until only one remained, Selim. Selim the Sot, a man known more for wine than wisdom, a drunkard, weak, uninspiring. He would become sultan after Suleiman's death, not because he was the best choice, but because all the better ones were gone, including Mustafa. And this is where the truth darkens even further. Historians now believe that many of the letters implicating Mustafa in rebellion were forged, that the accusations were fabricated, that Hürrem, alongside her ally, Grand Vizier Rustam Pasha, orchestrated a masterstroke of political manipulation. They didn't just eliminate Mustafa. They convinced his own father to do it for them. To this day, scholars debate whether Suleiman truly believed his son betrayed him, or whether he simply chose survival over sentiment. Perhaps he feared becoming another sultan overthrown by his own blood. Perhaps he believed it was his divine duty to protect the throne at all costs. But perhaps he knew, and that knowledge haunted him until his dying breath. There is a tomb in Istanbul where Suleiman now rests, surrounded by the symbols of his greatness. But outside the grandeur, outside the marble and gold, there remains a shadow shaped like a prince who died too young, a shadow shaped like betrayal. This is not just a story of a king and his son. It's a story of power and the price of keeping it. A story of love twisted into fear, of loyalty punished as treason, of a father who trusted lies more than blood, and of a poison far deadlier than any drink or dagger: ambition. The throne stood tall, but at what cost? As you turn off this video, ask yourself, in the war for power, who really wins? And more importantly, who's left to bury the truth?